With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Live from iRacing's virtual Daytona International Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to Race 6 of the 2025 Precision Racing League Truck Series. We are set to hit the high banks as Daytona week continues on the service, and as always, happy that you're spending some time on your Wednesday night with us here on RaceSpotTV. With our producer downstairs, Dustin Allis, Derek Watson, and myself, Evan Pasoko, in the broadcast booth for this one. And with 4 races to go, the drops have now factored in to a championship battle that has carried us all the way through the likes of Stafford and Homestead over the last couple of weeks, and now a lot of big tracks on the docket coming up, of course, with the World Center of Racing here tonight.
Yeah, Evan, you know that movie we watch sometimes says there's no place like home. There's no place like home. Well, here we are. We're home at Daytona, the second leg of our Florida 2-week stay for the PRL. Next week, we go to Atlanta, the new layout, and we finish off at COTA and Phoenix for the 9 weeks. But look at the points here. There's a lot that have changed in the past couple weeks for the drivers as we go through the point standings here. Bradley Holly holds a 3-point lead over Ted Lowendick. Richard Regan Jr. has some space to make up here, about 20-ish points. And then at Reese Bogue, Mark Kalin, your top 5. And then Matt Gagnon, Stephen Kirby, Doug Evans, Colton Lane, and Steve Leving are your top 10, Evan.
Yeah, and it's those Whataback Racing trucks in Holly and Lowendick at the top of the board who have been so consistent, both sporting an average finish under the number 2, and therefore no shock that Whataback Racing leads the team championship coming into this one of the likes of Holly Lowendick as well as Colton Lane. They got 52 points over Riga de Bogue Motorsports. No shock that team's in second. They've got Richard and Reese third and fourth in the driver standings. You got the Gold Octopus in third, the Riga de Bogue development team at fourth, and then Buster's Buds Racing Club in the number 5 spot. Rest of the team standings all the way down through the RBM Bake side of the Gold Octopus in the number 10 spot. But it seems like late in the season, Whataback Racing, the team to watch and maybe their team championship to lose at this juncture in the season. As we get set for this race, as always, want to say a big thanks to all of our partners for making tonight's broadcast possible. It starts with our friends at Logitech G. Logitech G wheel and pedals are equipped with true force feedback to help you feel the road and own the race. Use code PRECISION at checkout on logitechg.com for 5 or 10% off your purchase. For Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members get a 5% discount on ASR products using the code PRECISION5. For Racebox Sim Racing, Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing drivers. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the code PRECISION5. for the Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products are incredible and add an immersive experience to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. For Moradness. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For Mr. Hedge Sim Racing Photography. At Mr. Hedge, capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby at up to 8K resolution, a great addition to any sim room. And by Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials and become a better driver. Well, there is going to be some skill involved in what is coming up here. It is a very nuanced element of oval racing here on the iRacing service, Derek, as we go super speedway racing in Daytona. But it is a fickle foe because, yes, some drivers are better at plate racing than others. But no, that doesn't always mean those are the drivers who end up in victory lane. The randomness, the happenstance, the unpredictability of a place like Daytona is what levels the playing field.
It's funny. I had a long talk with a few PRL drivers today, Evan, about this exact topic, about is it luck? Is it parity? Is it skill? Is it a mix of all three? I tend to not think it's as much luck as everyone else does. Yes, there's some luck involved in every form of racing, as we're watching Richard Regan Jr. turn his qualifying lap here. But I think what people can think of luck is more parity, right? The draft gives that parity to the field, and it sort of just evens things out and puts everyone together. And that's what I think makes it feel more like luck. But who knows, who ends up here. That's the appeal of super speedway racing as a fan, is you never know who's going to win. It's not predictable. It's not something you can kind of just go, oh, that guy might win. There's, however trucks, there's that many winners available for this race.
That was a look at Richard L. Regan Jr. as we jump over to Bradley Hawley now, the driver who comes into tonight as your championship leader. He has an impressive average finish of a 2.0 so far this season. And despite the fact that he does lead the championship, that's only the second best average finish on the year. Ted Lowendick's got him beat by a whole point and a half nearly, an average finish of a 0.6. Ted Lowendick has been equally as impressive. 2 laps around this Daytona International Speedway. Everybody's second lap faster than their first if things are going according to plan, to the tune of about a half second. If we take a live look in at Stephen Kirby, Matt Gagnon currently has the time to beat for pole at 51.525.
And, it's funny, you use the word nuance in one of the ad reads, and when it comes to qualifying here, nuance is the word, right? Because it's all about minimal input. It's about very small movements in the wheel. It's about being exactly on the line. And any nuance, any small tick of a move, any small shake of the wheel is a difference here, maybe between first and 20th in your qualifying time.
Kirby comes across the stripe. He'll jump up to 13th position with his second trip around the racetrack in the books, and only a handful of drivers left out there with a lap still to go. Of course, all of these races fixed setup, so there is no advantage one truck to the next. So you are really looking at driver finesse to get the best times. You see Edward Peltz across the stripe was 32nd. He'll jump up to 27th, utilizing that apron on the front stretch to kind of cut that tri-oval just a little bit, get maybe an extra 100th or an extra 1,000th of a second out of it where he can. And I believe that will do it for the qualifying session as the clock starts to wind down. All trucks that attempted a time in qualifying have been able to complete one, and with that, qualifying does draw to a close. So let's go trackside and take a look at your starting grid tonight from Daytona. And in the end, it is Patrick Cowgill with a late 51.514 will bring us to the green flag tonight. That drops the Regan Bogue developmental driver and Matt Gagnon to P2 on the grid. Richard L. Regan Jr. looking for his 3rd straight win on the season. He'll start inside row number 2 and 3rd alongside the number 2, Dalton Geyer, who starts in 4th. And back out of row number 3, it is the number 60 Whataback Racing Machine of Colton Lane starting 5th, and the Miracle Flow Motorsports 41 of Doug Evans in P6.
Moving back into P7 and 8. This is the Tabula Rasa line right here. It's 7th and 8th, James Morgan and Jacob Dunn in that order. Evan Williams and Ted Lowendick, 9th and 10th. And then back in row number 6, Nicholas Hunter, a former winner here at Talladega, or at a super speedway, pardon me, at Talladega, and Doyle Lawrence in P12.
Lucky number 13 tonight goes to Stephen Kirby. He'll be alongside Jeff Evans on row number 7. Thomas Sink starts in the number 15 spot. He's alongside the 16th place starter in the 16. That is Dustin Bumgarner. And back on row 9, it is 17th place starter tonight for the 71 of Stacy Hunter. At 18th on the grid goes to Zach Panzarella.
Moving back into row number 10, Bradley Holly, who you talked about his stats earlier, lines up next to Garrett Austin in P20. 21st and 22nd is Zachary Burnt and Joey Reynolds, and then Mark Kalin and Nicholas Schwartz round out the top 24.
25th will go to Sam Smeltzer and Ryan Newman alongside in 26th. Edward Peltz 27th, Colton Easterday in 28th, Tom Massey 29th, and Zachary Williams rolls off from P30.
Moving back here, the last two cars to turn a time, pardon me. Matthew Zerwick in 31st and Nathan Deering in 32nd. And the other cars here who did not qualify, Evan Andrew Sharp in 33rd, Steve Loving 34, Brett Adam 35. Kyle Dewey's back here, as is Kevin McGarvey, Brandon Chatley, and Austin Hunter, the last car on a 39 truck field.
It's a look top to bottom at your starting grid as the field rolls behind the iRacing official pace truck. As always, on a Wednesday night, looking at a 60-minute timed event. iRacing estimates that would be about 71 laps in race distance. Of course, with that being the number that looms large, Derek, unless we've got some real good fuel saving, likely going to need a trip to pit lane. Of course, any yellows would solidify that, but it'll be interesting with maybe a slight question mark hanging over that strategy call on what drivers want to do early in this one. We know that any race at Daytona, whether it's timed, whether it's a lap counter, the key is to survive to be there at the end. But some of these drivers have kind of expressed, because it is a timed race and those milestones don't really come in the lap counters, you may see the drivers up front be a little bit more conservative. Now, that's a lot easier said than done. We'll see if they listen to that advice once the green flag drops.
Yeah, so with the estimated laps here, you're right, we're really close on the fuel tank, and this could become a problem of who really wants to lead this thing, right? Because the leader's going to burn the most fuel. And so we might see a lot of lead changes happen where people just want to fall back in line and conserve some fuel. I don't know. We'll wait and see. But you're right. One well-timed caution puts that talk to bed. But I wouldn't be surprised to see some pretty conservative, very gentle, maybe not gentle, but some very cautious racing at the start of this thing.
We'll see how it plays out. It is a full field, nearly 39 truck strong. Only one of them can walk away a winner, and maybe the greatest risk for the top drivers in the championship comes in this race here tonight. Can you stay clean with a critical championship battle ongoing? Field in the hands of Patrick Cowgill. Let's go racing in Daytona.
Look at that gap right there that Cowgill has. It's a little bit of gap. I wonder already if Richard Regan and back there right behind him, others is kind of laying back. That's a big gap he had, and they've allowed the outside lane to already catch up due to that gap in the drafting line.
The field led by the 14 Gagarin now, following him through that bright yellow number 41 Matt Gagarin down into the number 2 spot, as you mentioned. So it's going to be a 2-truck advantage off the quarter. Gagarin looking to the outside, a huge burst of speed. Here comes Ted Lowendick, who started this race in 10th, and he is the leader at the end of lap number 1. Meanwhile, Thomas Sink to pit road, unscheduled stop. He's the only driver in.
Yeah, it's a black flag for Thomas Sink. I would have to go back and confirm possibly a passing on the inside penalty. I'm not sure, but that was a black flag, so just a drive-through. So we'll see later if we can get a confirmation on that. But look at this out here. Big line on the bottom. That line on the top keeps having big gaps in it. But there's the 6. He's now, well, never mind. He was the leader up top. But so far, Evan, everyone's willing to get in line and sort of right around here.
So he is going to blend back out onto the racetrack. Trouble for him is, of course, already a half a lap down, and without drafting support, going to need a quick yellow if he wants to stay in this one. You just saw 3 drivers in the mid-pack go from the outside lane to the bottom, as that inside now heavily the better lane. Only maybe 7 or so cars throughout the entire field running on the outside lane. You see the 2 closest to the front of the field. That's going to be the white number 95, Colson Easterday. Behind him, the number 21 of Steve Loving. At Easterday, sees it open it on the bottom, drops down it in. In fact, they will both find a spot down in line.
So the challenge that they're going to have by running this bottom lane like this, Evan, is that while it may be better for the fuel saving, it may be better for that purpose, it's going to be a challenge because with this many trucks in line, there's going to be a lot of really mini checkups in that lane where someone needs to lift out of a corner or they wobble the truck out of a corner or what have you. And that's why people are going to start pulling out of this lane. It's not necessarily because they want to, it's because a checkup sort of forces them to. That's the downside to having this massive, probably what's got to be a, 25 truck lane I would say on the bottom, is that it causes these little mini checkups, and that can really become problematic as this race goes on.
And you got to look way back in the pack. That number 8 truck who leads the outside there into Matthew Zerwick, 17th spot last time by the start-finish line. You can see the inside just with more trucks in line. Clearly the faster lane to be in. Now Zerwick started back in the 30s, so he's been aggressive to make up some spots early. That may influence him to stay with this outside lane a little bit more consistently. But we had heard those rumblings of drivers suggesting that you want to be conservative early, and the big line on the inside seems to indicate that. Now, when you're on the bottom, going to be a lot of lifting and checking up. You don't need the same number of trucks as you have on the bottom to make the top work if you've got maybe a half dozen trucks who agree that you're going to push the envelope. And that's what we're seeing with Zerwick and company. That outside lane starting to build a little bit of steam. He's worked his way all the way up to what would equate to about a spot in the low teens, 13th spot as they run right now. So it's up 4 spots from the last time around. As other drivers see that outside lane, Derek, start to get some momentum, then you'll start siphoning trucks up off of the bottom. They'll jump up, work with you, and then maybe we can get a legitimate second lane in the works here. But those trucks up top, make it 6 of them right now, doing their very best.
Yeah, they're going to try their best. And I like this idea, actually, because, I mean, right now, for these trucks up top that start in the back, like you said, Zerwick started back in the 30s, what he's trying to do more realistically is get to the front, because the theory about super speedway racing, Evan, is that the closer you are to the front of the field, the further you are away from danger. Now, whether that's true or not, you and I have both seen that not be true multiple times, but a lot of drivers in the back want to get towards the front because they do really believe that being towards the front, gives them better odds of surviving any wreck that may occur.
Big head of steam now as the 2-truck tandem gets going. Maybe a small omen to the days of the tandem draft as these 2 trucks have gotten hooked up and taken off. The 05, the Tom Massey, the lead truck in this. You jump on board with the pusher. That'll be the 62 machine. Mark Kalin, they are on the move. 190 miles an hour. They're 8 miles an hour faster than the cars on the inside. And look at this. They're going to drive all the way right up alongside the race leaders. And Ted Lowendick, who has been unchallenged for the last 6 laps. We'll see the race lead go away off of 2. Can they clear the inside, though? That's going to be the challenge. One more push as they get to the center of the super stretch. They are clear, and now they'll want to move to the bottom. Too much hesitation, though. Not in time, and Kalin cannot get down.
Wow, yeah, Kalin took way too long. That's one of the skills I think for super speedway racing that gets missed a lot, is you have to make snap decisions here. You can't, this isn't your local highway going 65, 70. You can't sort of, meander your way over. You have to do it and do it fast. And so there, that gap closed on Kalin. Now he'll lead that lap, so that's good news for him. But yeah, you're right, it took way too long. But I'm thinking in my head, Evan, a lot of the times Mark Kalin has been successful in the PRL lately has been fuel strategy races. And I thought to myself, isn't this kind of ironic? This is a much different fuel strategy race, but here's Mark again up front when we're fuel saving.
And with another push on the outside, now Kalen going to get all the way clear to the lead. And that quick, concise move from the yellow truck and Nicholas Hunter, that's what you wanted out of Kalen earlier. Get clear, drop right down to the inside, and now they will likely ride around for a little bit and enjoy the track position that they've earned. And it seems to be a revolving door of who's going to be the next man up, because now the challenge to the outside coming courtesy of Stacy Hunter, that kind of aqua foam, teal, light blue, whatever you want to call it, number 21 on the outside. He's giving the lead truck, and now the 36 of Sam Smeltzer. Gonna need to get to the bumper of that truck, though, if they want to complete this pass.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to if I'm Sam Smeltzer, because, Sam Smeltzer's in a good spot here. He's getting all the fuel saving. He's getting the ride up front. I don't know if I'm Sam Smeltzer, if I'm inclined to really push the car in front of me up to the lead, because they're going to dump me. They're going to leave me behind and put me out there conserving more fuel. I might be happy right there in that spot if I'm Smeltzer. So we'll wait and see how this plays out and what happens with it. And they are losing a bit of ground on the front, and that's because of the gap in between those trucks in the top lane. They're no longer hooked up, and so you can see they're kind of losing a bit of ground on the bottom lane.
Kalen came up to try to shut the door there, saw the momentum coming, and almost got lost in the third lane in the center. He's fortunate that Mark Kalen gave him a little bit of credit and allowed that 62 to come back down and in. And, that logic of staying to the outside lane, not dropping down just because it's open, we see that a lot in the real world, right? If you see a single file train in Daytona these days, it's probably on the outside lane, because drivers get the momentum there, they clear the bottom, and instead of rushing to dive down, they just stay up top, and that's how the outside builds that advantage. You do see some of that these days on the Sims, certainly more than you did 5-6 years ago, but not nearly as frequently is that strategy established here in the Sim as it is in the real world. And if the 71 and company are pretty content with being up top, that's not good news for the rest of the cars in that outside lane. More trucks have gone up there as they had seen that outside be a stepping stone to go to the race lead. Now we're seeing what we would expect here in Daytona, and that is too wide all the way through your top 20.
Yeah, in a way, it kind of almost feels like some people have missed the memo about this fuel saving thing, right? Some people decide they want to go, and I guess what they're counting on maybe is a well-placed caution somewhere in this race to kind of put a lid on that fuel saving talk. But I mean, right now, you're still riding around here. I don't think anyone's being super aggressive. I mean, it just doesn't have that feel. But we're still, 50 minutes to go. There's no need to be super aggressive yet. Right now, we're sort of in that feeling out process. We're still just building patience with one another, sort of learning about one another. And I think you're sort of building your friendships that you'll need for the end of this race. Because the way you race someone right now may come back to matter in about 45 minutes.
Yeah, 50 minutes still left on the clock so far. Clean and green from Daytona. We saw Thomas Sink come down pit road for an unscheduled pit stop. He is still the only driver who has dropped off of the lead pack. Brett Adams missed the grid in this race. Those two trucks are drafting off of the lead pack. They are not maintaining pace, though, with them. And shortly, we'll be talking about the race lead pack catching that lap traffic. Here's a good split look as those two come through the tri-oval. End of the lead lap is Thomas Sink. Brett Adams is 3 laps down. They sit 38th and 39th respectively. There's your leaders as they come through the tri-oval. So you're looking at a gap between the two of them, 49-second lap times, 40-second gap. That time about 9 seconds before the leaders would be able to catch them. And the lead pack's maybe a half second faster per lap. So not an immediate threat, but eventually, if we stay green, those trucks will get caught.
Yeah, and that may be the first test for this lead pack, by the way, when you have to pass lap traffic while you're already too wide. That will be the first test for this group, see how they handle it. If they start to single file out, or if they just want to push it pretty wide, or what they want to do, and see how it works out. But look at this, by the way, this is still Mark Kalen leading this around. That's I think it's a 71 on the outside. That's Stacy Hunter, but Mark's doing a good job, mostly holding a pretty sturdy line, a little bit of movement. That's pretty normal. But right now, it's just doing a solid job leading that bottom lane around.
And this stalemate on the front row with the 62 machine of Kalen leading the bottom and the 71 of Stacy Hunter leading the outside has hurt the strength and numbers that the outside lane had. There was no more than a few laps ago, maybe 10 trucks up there. You see with one more diving in, I think that leaves only 5 trucks on the outside lane. Then maybe you start to get a little bit more nervous. Now, if that 36 of Smeltzer is going to continue to be aggressive on the bump draft, then you can certainly maintain with 5 trucks, especially if nobody on the bottom is being aggressive as you jump on board with Stephen Kirby. His number 109 truck, currently the last driver in line on the outside. But with everybody else on the bottom, if you cannot maintain this track position, it would be a long road before you find another spot in line. So not time to hit the panic button yet, but clearly Stacy Hunter thinking about it, makes that move up the road. That teal 71 truck down to the inside lane, takes over from the bottom, and now with only 4 trucks up top, Sam Smeltzer's got the clean air.
Let's see what that 4-truck line does, by the way, because there is some people who do believe, Evan, in iRacing, 4 to 5 trucks is the ideal number for drafting. When you get a really good run, you don't have the risk of too many checkups, you don't have the risk of too much shenanigans going on. So this 4-truck line might be more powerful than it would look if you just base it upon, you know, a numbers game in that moment. So we'll see at Sam Smeltzer how well he can lead this pack around and what he can do with it. But with 47 minutes to go, everyone seems to mostly be following the game plan of being calm, being patient. In fact, there's some drivers, Evan, who've already kind of fallen back into the field. I think they're really fuel saving. I noticed both of the Tabula Rasa cars, Jacob Dunn and James Morgan, falling back out of the top 10. They're just sort of riding here. Some other cars have really fallen back as well. I mean, Colton Lane's down 26, Dalton Geyer's down 28. I don't think that's an accident.
Yeah, there's 2 different philosophies that could be implemented there as you see the positions gained and lost, and there's a lot of big movers up front. The window is kind of open in those first 4 laps, 5 laps of the race to make some moves, and then as things quickly settled down, those passing opportunities became more limited. A lot of drivers may, to your point, be dropping to the back to get the big draft off of the pack to conserve fuel. Alternatively, maybe the best spot to be in this early would be to kind of be the last truck in line, which is a dangerous spot because, again, if you lose touch with the pack, you're going to be SOL. But what drivers will try to do is stay in the draft but get back so that they're far enough away from wherever they feel like the risk of an accident happening is. They have enough time to react to it. That is another one of the tried and true methods here in Daytona, is to hang back and try to avoid a wreck. As that 36 car, Smeltzer, thought about getting inside, but Stacy Hunter, that door was open for a moment. Again, that slight hesitation, the reason the 36 couldn't execute.
Yeah, it's funny how many theories there are about Daytona and Talladega racing, right? The front of the pack versus the back of the pack, or qualifying versus not qualifying, or, you know, hey, bumping into corners. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. And here's another one, inside lane versus outside lane. There are some drivers who will move around this track and be comfortable wherever. And there's some drivers, Evan, who, because that thing you talked about if or when the wreck happens, they want to be on the inside lane. They think that by having all that track down there, you see in the camera shot, that they have all this extra space to avoid a wreck. There's some drivers who insist the top lane is faster, and you'll never peel them off of it. It's just another one of those preferences that people have that is just hard to break them of when it comes to super speedway racing.
We saw some trucks spooling up on the outside line. They have all gone away quietly. Only 4 trucks up top, at a bit of a dangerous spot to be if you're that bright yellow one for Doug Evans, because he has no drafting support. And if you want to maintain track position, you're going to have to be a bit of a jerk here and get down and side draft, pinch those trucks underneath you. I think if he can see an opening, he'd likely take it. But that 41 kind of hanging on by a thread. He is getting some draft off of the trucks in front of him. Here's an on-board look with him. And again, because everybody on the inside saving and checking up, right now it's looking good, but he was very close to falling off of the back end of the draft there. So Doug Evans going to be fortunate. And he'll probably, now that he's caught that toe again, he's probably going to draft all the way right up to the back bumper of that 16 machine, Dustin Bumgarner. That's the black Toyota, who is 3rd in line on the outside, and calm, cool, and collected right now as you go on board and in the cockpit with him.
Man, and look how stable those hands are. Like the hands you see in his webcam there, it's very little movement, not a lot of rocking back and forth, just very calm, very, very stable. That's not what we always see when we look at webcams at Daytona. You don't always see, you know, those moves right there. It's, boy, he got in the bottom lane. I got concerned for a second if he was going to be in front of someone or not, but that's a beautiful setup there for Doug Evans. You know, something to talk about is the side draft. I know with the new updates in iRacing, the Cup cars, the next gen cars, I guess now the current gen cars, they really have a massive side draft on them now, Evan. You can really, almost put a parachute on someone. I'm not seeing as much of that here in this race yet, and maybe that's by design because we're just kind of being gentle and hanging out and waiting for that moment when it's time to go. But that's another difference here, is just how these cars drive. I really do believe of the top 3 NASCAR tiers in iRacing, that being, I guess the next gens, the trucks, and the Xfinity cars, these trucks have the biggest draft on them, but the side draft comes in the form of the A cars that we'll see on Friday nights.
You really do, and here's that updated look at those lap trucks that we had alluded to a couple of laps ago. They are being caught by the leaders, and now it's an interesting decision for Thomas Sink and Brett Adams. You can choose the best thing for your race, which would also be the maximum disruption, and that would be just hold the bottom lane, make the race leaders go around you. At some point, you will get assumed and assimilated into that lead pack, and then it would obviously secure Thomas Sink's position as the lucky dog truck. Of course, he's not fighting anybody for it, so he doesn't have to force that issue. It could yield high. It would still put us in a 3-wide scenario for a moment, but it would certainly be easiest for the lead pack to clear them if those 2 lap trucks went to the outside. Haven't seen any indication yet, though, that they're going to get up and off of the double yellow line. So as the leaders are side by side in their rear view mirror, here they come, and the leaders are going to seemingly have to go to the outside to try to get around these lap trucks.
And right now it's too late for these guys to move. They've made their decision. They've committed to it. It's at the bottom. As a driver, everyone has a different opinion. I think if I was in the lead and this pack was too wide, I'd want them to be high. If this was a single file race, I'd be okay with them sticking to the bottom. But right now they're going to get sucked into the draft here. They're going to kind of help draft the bottom lane around. So Thomas Sink's going to barely hold on to the lead lap here. But this will get sketch when the leaders get up here. 3 wide, 2 lapped cars. This will be white knuckle racing for the leaders here in about, I'd say, a lap or so when they finally decide to start getting around Brett Adams and Thomas Sink here. But the best thing Sink and Adams can do is hold still, be predictable, and make them pass you.
And as these leaders have come all the way up on them so far, unable to get all the way by, and they have essentially become the lead 2 trucks working on the inside line of the racetrack. So good news for them, bad news for the 71 of Stacy Hunter, because Hunter was in the position of leading the inside lane, now stuck 3rd in line on the bottom, and if wants to make an attempt to go to the race lead, you're not going to get around those lap trucks. Does this affect the strategy for the 71, the 62? Do they decide to go to the outside lane, or are they still pretty content with where they run? They now have the benefit of drafting off of the trucks in front of them, saving a little bit of fuel, something that Hunter would not have been able to do when he was leaving that lane a couple of laps ago.
Yeah, that's what came to my mind right about 5-10 seconds ago was, hey, the Stacy Hunter just got a free draft here, essentially, right? And it's not like they're slow. They're not off pace. They're not disturbing anything per se. So right now, the former leader of this race, who by default would have been spending the most fuel of anyone, is now getting a fuel save. And look at that gap. He's probably about 90% throttle. Look at that gap between him and Brett Adams in that green and white machine. That tells you that Stacy Hunter is content to ride here. As we look at that tachometer, it looks to be pretty high, but I'm pretty confident he's not full throttle here and just kind of riding around. So this is good news for what was the leader of the race. And now the only person spending the most fuel is Sam Smelter, and he's been up leading that lane for a long time. He's probably going to be the first person, Evan, that needs to take gas in this race.
Yeah, Smeltzer's been up top for a while. The stat sheet's only going to show you 3 laps led. That's because for many of it, it was riding alongside Hunter, with Hunter getting the advantage at the start-finish line for most of it. 1/3 of the way through this 60-minute timed race in Daytona. Again, the math would suggest 49 laps to go that time by. That is assuming current race pace and assuming that this race stays green. There's been a few moments of hesitation on the front row, trucks being a little bit wary of clearing themselves when they were clear, but not forcing the issue. And aside from some of the, I don't want to call them heart-stopping moments, but maybe catch-your-attention moments that some of those decisions have caused, everywhere else in the field, Derek, knock on wood, nobody has been driving too crazy yet through these opening 20 minutes and change.
No, driver radio impact has been pretty calm. Just a couple comments here or there telling someone, hey, get in line, or, very polite things compared to maybe what we're used to hearing at a track like this. There's the back of the draft lane, by the way. That's the Ryko machine all the way in the back here. That's Andrew Sharp. And this might be a little further back than I'd want to be, because you run the risk right here, Evan, of losing this draft. You really need to stick to the back of that truck. You got back in there, but if you're another 10th or 2/10 of a second off of that Sony truck in front of you, you're going to have some problems. Or if you lose this draft, now fuel saving is out the window because there's no one to draft on. There's no one to help you in this moment here. So we look up through the field, and I think I heard a first truck pitting. It's Mark Kalin on the inside there. Mark Kalin already down pit road. That is, I would think, super early. That's only lap 27, Evan. That has got to be off cycle. But there's a few trucks down pit road, actually.
Down pit road, not on his own. Kevin McGarvey, Brendan Chatley, Austin Hunter down. That is not what you want, though, if you're Kevin McGarvey. And I wonder if the fact that other trucks that had pitted in front of him messed him up a little bit going into the box. But that could be a race ender right there for the 77, because he's going to be in the box for longer than anybody else. And as Kalen, Chatley, and Hunter get off of pit road, McGarvey is way behind. He is certainly going to lose the draft from those other trucks that he pitted with. And again, much like the boat that we've been talking about Thomas Sink was in, that's going to be costly because you're going to lose the lead lap with enough time. You can see two trucks pitting to his left. It's a combination of things. That pit stall's early. You got to yield to the left coming into pit road. And those other trucks were there, Derek. Maybe that was why he didn't want to cut it close to the left-hand side. He wanted to give some space, but by the time he tried to turn that truck, it was going too fast. And McGarvey's total time on pit road, 43 seconds. That's about 8 seconds longer than the other trucks that pitted.
Yeah, that's not good news. So he'll be kind of probably hoping for a yellow flag at some point to bring this field back together. He'll be off pace for the rest of the night unless a small draft pack can find him at some point and get him together. I'm surprised, Evan, though, by this early pit stop. I thought we would run it closer. About at least another 4 minutes or so before pit stops would come out. And so I'm a little surprised, but those guys all pitted together. So I want to talk about, though, two things that I think will happen when pit stops begin. Obviously, one, the easy one. The trucks are going to start moving to the bottom, right? So trucks like Brett Adams, Colton Lane's back there in that Valvoline machine, third in line. Those trucks will need to get to the bottom if they want to get to pit road. But I think the second game that's going to get played here is, when do you pit? So when I was talking to some of the drivers who did this race last year, or did in the super speedways, they talk about you don't want to pit later than someone. You don't want to kind of get the undercut overcut problem where you never get back in the drafting lane. So this may be a bit of a chess game of who pits first, hoping they can get the cleaner track position.
And with some trucks having come down pit road in a coordinated effort, you would assume that means we are inside of the fuel window to get to the end of the race. They pitted about 47 laps to go. That early decision would tell me that we're likely to see everybody pit if this thing stays green. The one challenge with that other pack of trucks, though, is they all pitted together, but they didn't leave pit road together. Mark Kalin was way quicker on pit road than Chatley and Hunter was. So Chatley and Hunter are drafting. That's them right there, the 59 and the 27. But they've been about 4 seconds behind the car who led them off of pit road in Mark Kalin. So that 62 car actively dragged the brakes there to allow those other two trucks to catch him, because the time lost by literally braking and slowing down, less time lost than it would have been if they took longer to get synced back up. But you can see this lead pack is coming quick, and I think even if this strategy number is a good one to get to the end of the race, just how uncoordinated they were off of pit road and how few trucks they have is really going to work against them.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting, by the way, that Mark Kalin, one of the trucks who pitted there, was one of the drivers who really got to the front and led early. And so I'm wondering if he just burned up too much gas, if he missed the memo about fuel saving. Man, look at that bump draft there by the 9 to the 48. So that's technically your race leader bump drafting the guy at the end of the lap, right? That's Doyle Lawrence in the 9. He's your leader. He's got that Sim Racing Expo advertisement on that truck, and he is pushing Thomas Sink. Thomas Sink is literally at the end of the lead lap. Like, if Lawrence goes around him, he's a lap down. So this is sort of an interesting scenario right now to see how this plays out. But yeah, I was thinking to myself, you know, Mark Killen pitting first, not surprising with how quickly he got to the front and how much time he spent out front.
And again, he's now hoping that he can go the rest of the scheduled distance in this one. You're looking off of the back of that lap truck who continues to lead the field in Thomas Sink. I don't want to say it doesn't matter if he's the first car a lap down or on the lead lap, because if you're a lap down, you have to use the lucky dog. That means you can't pit with the leaders should there be a yellow. So there is a vested interest for the 48 machine to stay up here, but I think we're going to have race leaders coming to pit road this time. Let's see. Sink is coming in. There's trouble off of turn number 4.
It's gonna be hot.
They scatter. I think all those trucks are okay. Does Sink get it down in time, though, to pit road speed?
Black flags from race control so far. But boy, oh boy, that was a hot pit stop from Thomas Sink. That's a great job getting that down to speed. In fact, he did. Yeah, I don't see any penalties here. Boy, oh boy, what a great run there.
Looked awfully hot on speed. In the end, it's Hunter, Lawrence, Hunter again, Reynolds, Serwick, and Sink, the trucks who come down to pit road. So it is a bigger conglomerate than that pitted that first time through. And we'll see if they are more in sync, no pun intended, as they come off of pit road. Here's the second look at the 48 of Thomas. And yeah, that twitch there hard onto the brakes, but it looked like he was indeed able to get it down to pit road speed here of 60 miles an hour. Do we have more takers? We do. Race leaders coming by again. Dustin Bumgarner is in, along with Sam Smeltzer right to the edge of pit road. Who else is down pit road with him? You got Tom Massey, Brett Adams down.
Yeah, but these are great runs down to pit road. Something I believe that oftentimes we don't practice enough in sim racing is pit road entry under green, because you can gain and lose a lot of time on how you enter and exit pit road. And that move by Tom Sink really proved that in that moment. But here we go back to the front of the field. Nicholas Schwartz, Zach Panzarella, Zachary Burnt, Jeff Evans, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now the pit window's open. I suspect lap by lap, this field will temporarily dwindle down as more and more cars come down. But the more these cars come down, Evan, and the longer these guys can stay out, whether it be the Tabula Rasa machines or others, those guys got to be more hopeful on the end of the race and how much fuel they can burn.
Lap number 35, more trucks down pit road. This is the biggest group by far. Panzarella, Lane, Burnt, Schwartz, Newman, Easterday, Geyer. You got Williams, Deering, Sharp, Dewey, and more. Make it about a dozen trucks down pit road. It increases the risk of an accident on the pit road entry, but it'll also increase the potential benefit as you're going to have a bigger group of trucks blending back out onto the racetrack together. You'll see those pit stops concluding on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Schwartz going to come off of pit road side by side with Panzarella, who's going to duck in line. And now through all of this, waiting on the top 13 cars to come down pit road, and this may be all of them in one swing of the bat.
Maybe the biggest group it feels like that we've seen come down pit road at once, and Richard Regan Jr., that new Neonism paint, led him down here. And now let's see who does well. Jeff Evans actually jumped a couple of spots, it looked like, there with how well he got on pit road, so we'll see how that plays out. But this will be it. So now that merge will begin to happen, where we'll see people cycle back around, and we'll see who really is our net leader. Ooh, who's that up against the wall? Is that Oz? Who is that's that blue truck? That blue truck's having a hard time.
Yeah, struggling to find a footing there is Austin Hunter, who may be the driver looking to cycle through to the race lead. One of the first trucks who came down pit road and pitted, but all of the trucks who just came down now going to blend back out. They will assume the top position. It's not just a handoff. Now that secondary pack of trucks who pitted a lap ago, they are at speed. They're going to start to come through at pace. And in the end, Austin Hunter indeed part of that first trio to come down pit road, who I thought, Derek, may have struggled with how long it took for them to get synced up. In the end, their decision to pit first and work together for the last 9 laps pays out, because now everybody has gotten a pit stop out of the way, and this group by far and large going to have the best cycle, as they'll be about 2 seconds plus ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, the question in my mind, though, Evan, remember they pitted about 36 minutes to go. The question I have is, did they pit too soon, right? Are they just out here sitting ducks, waiting for a caution or waiting for something? Hunter, Kalen, Chatley, Doyle Lawrence is back there. Thomas Sink is grouped up with them. I'm just wondering if some of these guys have pitted too soon, and if this may come back around to bite them eventually. So it's very possible that the net lead battle is the group behind them when all is said and done. We'll wait and see here. But for Austin Hunter, this is a great feeling. I mean, he's pushed his brother to a win here a couple seasons ago. Austin's had a really rough, season, had some internet problems, not being able to connect to anything, not just iRacing, but any kind of gaming has kind of been off limits for Austin for a week or two. And so for Austin to go from having internet problems to, well, leading at Daytona, that's a good feeling.
I would be very surprised if they made enough of a mathematical blunder to have pitted in sync and on schedule for them and not have enough fuel to go to the end of the race because they were in no threat of running out of fuel and they decided to come down pit road. But we will see. They would have had to put more fuel in the trucks than anybody else. Therefore, they would have a least amount of margin to be able to go to the scheduled distance than everybody else. I think in a perfect world, these drivers were hoping that they could fight this out amongst the four of them. That is not going to happen. That second pack with way more trucks and way more speed, led by Nicholas Schwartz, is coming fast. And now the question is, as you're on board with Schwartz, do you just tuck in line when you catch them, or do we see these trucks dart to the outside and try to pass them?
I think with the run they have here, we'll see Schwartz kind of quickly closing that gap there on the truck in front of him, which is Doyle Lawrence. I think they're going to have to go. Nope. I thought they were going to side, but look at that. Schwartz is slowly now getting off of the gas and is sort of getting back in line. So they are going to stay in line. You're right. That's a good call. I thought for sure with the closing speed, they were going to have to go around in order to avoid them. But here we are, back to the coasting and lifting. The question is, when does each driver think that they've done enough? Right? Is that going to be 5 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go? When do you do it? When do you go and say, hey, listen, I'm tired of fuel saving. I'm tired of doing it. Or you've gotten the go sign from your either in-game spotter, your real-life spotter, whatever overlays you're using to know that you're finally good and you can just put the pedal down and try and win this race.
A lot of drivers were talking about that very thing in Discord earlier today, and one of the drivers had said probably 50 minutes of riding around and strategizing, and then 10 minutes of going after it. And if you are not in the position that you want to be in now that we've completed the pit cycle, you're going to have to start making those moves. You're going to have to start being an instigator. This field has split up a little bit, but you can see there on that wide picture as the sun begins to set behind the grandstands in turn one that there are still plenty of trucks in this battle. Lead pack make it 22 trucks strong, all the way back to Doug Evans in P22. Then James Morgan and Jacob Dunn are 5 seconds off of the lead pack. There they are in 23rd and 24th. They are running equal lap times to the lead pack, so they are desperately trying to catch on to the draft. And then a significant gap to the truck's 25th on the back. And Ethan Deering, look at this secondary group. That's too wide. This group all the way 13 seconds off of the leaders. And if they wanted to catch the lead pack, they would have to be pulling out some pretty astronomical lap times to do so. And their last couple of times around, they have only been slower than the drivers in the lead pack.
Yeah, I feel like at this point, if you want to catch that pack in front of you, whether you're Deering, Andrew Sharp, or anyone else in that lane, you're going to need to kind of say, hey, just go. Like, let's worry about the fuel saving and at the draft. And if that happens, if I want to catch the field, I have to go. Because I'm sure right now, if you went pedal down and really went for it, I would want to think you're going to catch the pack of leaders who aren't racing that way. So we'll wait and see how that comes out when it happens here. Here's Kevin McGarvey, by the way. This is the truck that we pointed out earlier that had the trouble on pit road, missed his pit stall, kind of played the hokey pokey, and there he is kind of all back by himself. He's pretty far back, Evan. So I would say short of a yellow flag, Kevin McGarvey's out of this race.
Yeah, this is the same thing that effectively happened to Sink when Sink pitted on his own, although Sink somehow got linked up with Brett Adams. And that lap truck drafted with Thomas Sink. That's how they were able to kind of delay the inevitable of getting lapped. So it looks bad for McGarvey. Right now, no, McGarvey's still on the lead lap, but with no drafting support, he is going to get caught quickly. When he does, then we've got a legitimate battle for the lucky dog spot. Thomas Sink has it right now. He is the fourth truck in line of these leaders. So by position, the trucks are first, second, third, and then 38th at the top of this pack. When those leaders catch McGarvey, it's going to be interesting to see where he is compared to Thomas Sink, because then we'll have a pretty enthralling battle for the lucky dog. And again, that's no more than a hope and a prayer, because you would need a caution flag to be able to get that lucky dog anyways. And I would say that the calm nature of this race thus far would make me believe that's not likely, but let's be honest. We all know Daytona. All it takes is a flip of the switch, and this race is going to turn on its head at some point. Now it is just a waiting game to see who's going to be the initiator of that and when it happens.
Yeah, it's just one little tick, right? One little mistake, one little break of concentration, what have you. And here's Richard Regan Jr., by the way. He's going to come up around the top and see how far he can get up here. Remember, he's debuting his new Neonism paints tonight. Pretty bright and colorful. And that paint, by the way, Evan, you and I both know that's a commentator's dream paint scheme right there. There's no way we're missing that. You're not confusing it with anybody. It's not identical to your teammate. Thank you, Richard Regan. That is the perfect commentator paint scheme.
It is definitely very easy to find, and Regan has been on quite a streak over the course of the last 2 weeks. A race winner at Stafford, a race winner at Homestead. Can he go for his third in a row and fourth in 6 starts? It would be quite impressive if he's able to do so, but maybe here we go. Darting to the outside, Zach Panzarella wants to join in on the fun. That daily machine now takes over the lead spot on the outside line. That lapped truck up the road. Kevin McGarvey going to be caught shortly. Going to put the race leaders in an uncomfortable 3-wide position. And this is going to be a huge speed differential.
Yeah, what I like what McGarvey did here, he's already identified what lane he's going to take. He's going to ride up against the wall and let the leaders go and try to move back down into this draft as fast as humanly possible so he can hold on to something. But here they go 3 wide around McGarvey. As long as McGarvey holds that top lane, we should be okay. Here in a second, he can start to pull down right about there. And he can start to suck himself into that draft and make some moves. But coming back to that front top lane there, Richard Regan Jr., the other point to make, Evan, Richard's already missed a race this season. He has a drop week of 0 because he went off and attended to the real-life Daytona 24 about a month ago now at this point. So Richard told me today and told some friends that he has to race conservatively. He has to be willing to make smart moves and to know when to make them. He can't be aggressive because he already has a 0 on the board. If this race goes bad, he doesn't have a drop loop to fall back on. He doesn't have any of those, that safety net. So I'm a little surprised to see Richard Regan up top here with 21 minutes to go, but he seems to be making it work for himself.
Yeah, well, everybody else's drop may be the loss of 20 points for a midfield finish. His is going to be a 0. So to your point, every single race for him matters, and also has to start every other race this season and not have any other unexpected absences because that would hurt him as well in how the points shake out. But I think we've got a battle for the race win on our hands now with 40 minutes down and 20 minutes to go. Have these drivers decided to start funding now because they're confident on the fuel number? That fuel strategy has been a lingering question over this race that has been caution and incident free for the last 40 minutes since the drop of the green flag. All 39 trucks who started this race are still on track, 36 of which are on the lead lap, and now the outside building some strength in numbers. 5 trucks have made it up to the outside.
That's Mark Kalin, I'm pretty sure, leading another lap right there as we got to the line. He's going to lead outside Austin Hunter. And boy, we talked about it again. Mark Kalin seems to come on really strong in races where fuel save. Came in strong last week at Homestead when that turned into a fuel save. Has won his race in season 4 on a fuel save race. And so we'll see what he has planned here. But I'm telling you, Evan, I'm nervous. I've said it before. Remember, these guys pitted first, and now they're leading. There's no fuel saving you can do if you're leading. I'm so nervous they're not going to have enough fuel.
It is on, and now that 62 of Mark Kalin going to try to make that race car about as wide as possible. He gave his fellow drivers some advice pre-race, and he said it's quite simple coming into this one. Don't mess it up. And now he has that thin margin of deciding, is he going to stay to the bottom, be consistent, be predictable, or does he feel like it's time to get aggressive? Because if he feels like now is time to go defensive, you're going to see that 62 bouncing between the inside and the outside lanes. If Doyle Lawrence gets a run on the outside, expect Kalin to come up and block it. The 62 holds the double yellow, so no move yet. Seems like he is okay for the moment, sticking on the bottom with Austin Hunter.
Yeah, it seems to be okay for the moment. Austin Hunter giving pretty good bumps here. Not too much bumping a little around the corner, maybe a little bit here. And that's another hot topic here across the iRacing service, Evan, is do we bump in the corners? And it's really, it's almost like you have to get everyone's approval, not only the bumper, but the person being bumped. Some people don't like to be bumped in the middle of the corner. Some people love it. And you have to kind of find out who prefers it, who doesn't, and if that matches your needs. That's one of the biggest things about super speedways we don't talk about, is who do you draft with? Who do you work with? Because this really is a big 1 hour friendship test, right? Who are you comfortable with? Who are you okay with? Who do you trust? And who do you line up with to make this happen when it's go time?
And there's a lot of deception going on as well, right? Maybe it's like one of those Netflix dating shows, right? You're trying to find a dancing partner, and you're trying to build relationships and trust. And we all know that in the end, you're just going to turn your back on each other in the end. Here we go to pit road. Those early trucks who pitted did not have enough fuel to go the scheduled distance. They are down pit road. So Kalen, Chatley, and Hunter are in. Those were the 3 trucks who pitted first 24 laps ago.
Yep, there's Mark Kalen. So there's that group. I was concerned that they weren't having enough fuel, and in fact, they did not. But I want to give you a chance to redeem yourself here. Please tell us that you've seen those Netflix shows because, like, you know, your better half makes you watch them. Oh, hold on.
Sounds like some issues in that secondary pack. Yeah, we were just looking at them from 25th spot on back. Sharp down to pit road. Oh, there it is there. There was the 24 truck spinner as they were coming on to pit road, and Andrew Sharp. I don't know if he had contact or if he just got too hot on the brakes. It was tough to see. But that's going to be a double whammy because not only does he lose time by spinning, but that truck spun into the grass. So I also suspect that Derek will likely get an unsafe pit entry penalty by driving back into the box. Let's take a second look. Does he get into that blue truck, or is it just going to be him on the binders? It's awfully close.
I suspect maybe a little bit of both, but he came in pretty hot, and I think he just kind of got on the brakes and the back and went around. But you're right. I'm pretty sure he's going to receive a penalty as well for that pit entry and being unsafe. So we'll wait for that and see when it happens. But here's the front of the field again. That's Sam Smeltzer back to the front. That's Zach Panzarella, a former champion last year in PRL trucks, coming around here leading on the bottom, and more trucks down pit road. I'm a little surprised you're doing it this early. I mean, these must be the trucks you pitted first, because I thought those who pitted right around the 30-minute mark were going to be safe, but there's a lot of drivers coming down pit road.
Yeah, and the likes of Newman and others were actually the most recent group of trucks to come down pit road. So for all this talk about, is it too early? Is it going to be too late? It seems like the consensus in the field will end up being that it's going to be a 2-stop strategy to go the race distance. And that means the likes of Hunter and Chatley and Kalen, who pitted first the first cycle around, and who pitted first now this second cycle of green flag pit service around, may actually end up in the catbird seat before this thing is all said and done.
Yeah, we'll wait and see who ends up where and how this plays out. But more pitting calls are coming out. Dustin Bumgarner will pit this time by. I'm sure some others will follow, and there's Bumgarner down the track, and I think he's alone. That's going to be the worst, Evan. That's going to be the worst. He's not going to have anyone draft with coming off of pit road. He's going to lose massive amounts of time pitting by himself.
Yeah, that's going to be the tricky one there. And we've seen other drivers without the strength of numbers come down pit road with a truck or two to help be able to make it work on a cycle. So it doesn't necessarily mean you need to find a lead lap truck or a truck on the same strategy as you to link up with. You just need somebody in close proximity. Smeltzer gets pushed to the race lead. That was off of the bumper of Nicholas Schwartz. That's the 171 truck in no rush to follow him to the inside. He'll stay up top. Him in the 60 of Colton Lane leading the outside. Are there going to be any takers this time by? Nobody bats an eye. Looking at the lead set of still 23 trucks who have yet to pit. You can make it a total number of 24 if you count Thomas Sink, who is, again, still slightly off cycle after that penalty on the start of this race. So still a majority of trucks that need to pit versus those who have pitted.
You know, it's interesting you brought up Thomas Sink, because I was thinking to myself, I was watching this go by, if I was in this packet, if I could find a way to make it work, I would try to convince Thomas Sink to lead us around here, right? Say, hey, Tom, you get up there. You know, you don't need to worry about Lucky Dog. You'll be, you know, last car in the lead lap if something happens. And see if I could convince him to lead us around and spend some of that fuel. So what I was thinking in my head. Now, how you do that and how you convince him, I don't know, because there's very few teammates up here in this pack together. This is all kind of a big conglomerate, if you will, of different teams across the Precision Racing League. So, but if I could finagle that into existence, I would make it happen. See if I can make Thomas sink the truck one lap down, lead us around so I could save some fuel.
Some drivers have opted to take that fuel conservation strategy. They've liked being in line and not being the driver making the big moves. Others have decided to be the leaders, whether it's been creating a charge on the outside or holding strong as the leader on the bottom. In the case of Sam Smeltzer right now, as he now occupies that spot on the bottom. All of the drivers who have yet to pit right now pitted anywhere between 20 and 23 laps ago. That means if they're going to go the scheduled distance, you would be looking at 36 to 39 laps on fuel. We have not seen anybody do 39 laps on fuel yet in this race, as they're going to squeeze high to the outside and sneak on by with not much room to spare around that 77 truck of Kevin McGarvey.
Wow, that was close. Kevin McGarvey and Colton Lane came really darn close together, and I got concerned we're going to put all this talk we have to bed, because I thought for sure that was going to be some contact and maybe something worse, but they saved it. So good job for them. But you're right. I mean, there's so much question mark about this race, and this is exactly what I talked to. Everybody across the league I talked to today, would it be an RBM, would it be in Wadaback, no matter what team I talk to, this sort of laying back, maybe 80% throttle, whatever we are, is what everyone sort of came in here expecting to happen. So I would say no one here is surprised. I think some drivers were hoping there would be maybe an early yellow or something well placed that could sort of put an end to this and let us actually go out and race. But right now we are where we are. And I think, Evan, this fuel saving is going to come into play. And I just think the winner of this race is going to be someone who's done better at it than we think. And I think right now, if you look at your leaderboard on the left side of the screen, I think probably someone outside the top 10 is going to end up winning this race.
And a big story developing now is Richard Regan Jr. We were just talking previously about the driver who's won 3 of the 5 races so far this season, already has lost his drop week, and we mentioned that gives him no margin for error. He has dropped connection from the race session. It was a connection issue on his end that has disconnected him from this race server. Even if he immediately loads back in, that truck's going to be dead last. I mean, his night effectively done, and maybe his hopes at a championship effectively done. And you hate to see something like that happen outside of racing circumstances, but wanted to mention that because you're going to see Reagan's name drop way down the leaderboard. That is massive in the championship discussion.
And that's heartbreaking, man. That's for a driver that really races so hard and comes in and preps every week and practices. That's heartbreaking to happen. I never count Richard out because you never know what will happen the rest of the season, but you're right, that's a massive hit to his hopes for winning this season championship. Well, here we are now, just about 10.5 minutes to go. Now, the one thing that comes to my mind for some of these drivers, Evan, remember, this is a timed race. There's no overtime here. It's an hour. So at a certain point, you have to go, because in those last 5 minutes, we have to assume we're basically at the point of no return. Meaning, I'd say the last 5 minutes, if a caution comes out, it's very unlikely this thing goes green again. So really, in my mind right now, if I'm a driver, I'm thinking I've got 5 minutes here to make a move before I can be locked in my spot.
And with that, it allows drivers to be a little bit more precise when it comes to fueling these trucks up. For those who came down a second time, there is no, I need to save a little bit for overtime. Based on, again, the iRacing estimate, which would be 12 laps to go the last time by, these guys have access to those same numbers that we do. Maybe allows them to hone in the exact number that they want to use for fuel a little bit more precisely than a race where you may have to keep a margin for error if you're talking about the possibility of overtime. Are these trucks going to stay out to the end? They're certainly starting to get racy, and if you're side by side on the outside, no way to pit. That's 60. Colton Lane went up, and I think the 84 car thought about leaving him up there, and Morgan cuts him a break because Lane came back down the hill, and I was just waiting for that truck to get spun.
Boy, this is getting dicey. I think everyone got the memo about that whole 5 minutes point and no return thing. Here's Lane now. He's going to cut to the lead and leave the top of the Rasa machines up front, up high, I should say, and leading that group here. But boy, the side draft's getting a little bit more real. The bumping's getting more real. The patience is wearing off. This feels like Daytona racing.
Just listening into some of the driver chatter, but you're right. The way that point of no return operates is the race could end at any point there. So you may see drivers who otherwise would want to sit second or third in line waiting to make a move on the last lap of this race. There may be a bit of an added incentive for a Colton Lane to be extra aggressive here, try to lead every lap, try to control both lanes, because if that yellow comes out inside of the final 5, to your point, we're not likely going to have enough time to see a restart in this one. Colton Lane leads the inside. It's James Morgan on the outside. Lead pack 19 trucks strong, but the main battle here is side by side all the way through the top 12.
Wow, it has picked up. It just, these last 3 minutes, it's like everyone just sort of got it together. I guess we're done fuel saving, or if we're not, people have just said, hey, you know, it's going to be what it is, because we're back to 2-wide racing. We're back to moving around. I'm excited watching these trucks get around here. This is what I thought this race was going to be. And there's a beautiful bump up top, trying to get Morgan up to the lead around Colton Lane. But one more time, Colton Lane leads him around here. So now if you're a driver in this moment, now the butterflies are kicking up, right? Now the nerves are kicking in if you're up here leading. Maybe, especially if you've never won a race here before, never won a PRL race or what have you. You have to manage that anxiety. You have to manage that stress, or it'll consume you in these last 7 minutes, Evan.
7 minutes to go. Next time by, going to be about 8 laps remaining at the virtual Daytona International Speedway. Round number 6 on the season. Can the major championship players just survive these next 7 minutes? And maybe is there a race win hanging in the balance for somebody who's a fringe driver that can launch them into a championship conversation as we prep for the final 3 races of the year at Atlanta, at Coda, and in Phoenix in the next couple of weeks. Still Lane, still to the outside for Morgan. It is hard for anybody else to make a move with these 2 trucks leading the way. Daytona much tighter than its sister track in Talladega. Does anybody dare try to make a 3rd lane?
Well, off screen, just FYI, Matthew Zarek had to do a splash and go, so he was short on gas. So we'll keep that story in mind as we get around here. But here we go, 6 minutes here coming around again to turns 3 and 4. And both lanes are kind of linked up. I noticed there's a bit of a gap in the top lane at times here between the 2nd and 3rd car. I think it's the 3 and the 21, I think it is, where we're having a bit of a disconnect. There's more cars down pit road. Oh, my goodness.
So they did have to come down pit road for fuel. It's a group of 6, Lane, Schwartz, Smeltzer, Hunter, and Burnt down pit road. Trouble on the pit entry, all kinds of mistakes. The 36 of Smeltzer stopped in the middle of the road. He missed his pit stall entirely. And as they come in for the shortest stop, this is why they've waited, Derek. Only a splash of fuel and out. Smeltzer with a mistake takes him out of it. But we're going to have all kinds of different packs here in the final minutes. You would think then the top 13 trucks still need to come down pit road. So who's the next taker? It's the number 21 truck all of a sudden leading the way on the outside, as that is lap machine Steve Loving, drafted with Evan Williams from a lap down.
Boy, and the moves are getting big here now. People now are being decisive about their lane changes, and they're happening fast here at Daytona. Remember, now, point of no return. There's no way I think this race does caution that we end up getting this race going again. We're hearing more calls about pitting as you come around here. Remember, the tricky part about this view right here, Evan, the car 3rd in lane on the bottom, that's your race leader.
The race leader is kind of stuck back in the traffic here with these lapped cars in front of him. Not a comfortable position, I would imagine. The good news for him is P2 is Jacob Dunn. That truck's behind him in line. But that 12 of Zach Panzarella is 3rd place. But he's the 3rd truck in line up top. If that 84 is stuck on the bottom, it's going to be limited options. More takers to pit road this time. 1 truck down pit road. It'll be Doyle Lawrenson from the lead. So with everybody yet to come down, is there anybody in this lead group of 12 that has enough fuel to be able to make it race distance on one pit stop. Again, your leader is third in line of this group, and I was talking about Panzarella being on the outside. He has dropped down to the bottom. So first, second, and third are the trucks third, fourth, and fifth in line on the inside.
So the trucks we're seeing up front right now are the trucks that were massively laying back during this run, by the way. I'm not sure if that gives them enough gas, but it would give them, I guess, a better chance of more gas than some of the drivers who were leading during this second run, during the second 30 minutes, if you will, here. But again, I want to emphasize there's so much chaos here, Evan, that it's that electric blue truck on the inside, third back. That's your race leader. There's so many lapped cars up here trying to unlap themselves. It's kind of deceiving and actually kind of a benefit for your race leader. He has a 2-truck train in front of him, so he can kind of keep lifting here and possibly save some more fuel in these final 3 minutes, as this looks to be right now a Tabula Rossi Esports 1 and 2 if it stays this way.
And that may be the part of the strategy here, is to get the draft off of the
there's a lap
trucks in
truck
front
coming.
of you. Lap traffic up the road. They're going to have to serpentine high to get around that number 31 machine. You're on board with the leader, James Morgan. He goes high. The outside lane gives him the space necessary. Both Morgan and Dunn are clear. Less than 3 minutes to go on the clock. Panzarella's out of fuel. Evans out of fuel. They got to come to pit road. That time by was 4 laps to go.
Panzarella not only out of fuel, Panzarella unsafe pit entry as well, touched the grass, so his race is done, unfortunately for him, unless something big were to happen here. But look at that gap now. Morgan's laying back. He's laying back off the 6 and trying to make this work. So it's Morgan, Dunn, and then Easter Day, your top 3. Here's Panzarella. Watch this, Evan. Locks it up and low in the grass.
And now a challenge to the outside of the leaders, not for position. But just keep in mind, oh, there's going to be trouble. The 5 gets turned. Caution flag comes out with 2 minutes to go. This race is going to end. And the leader at the moment of the caution was James Morgan. The yellow is also going to help him on fuel. If that was still a question, he will have to pace his way for the final 2 minutes.
Well, now the question is, does he have enough gas to pace around the victory? He has to finish the laps, right? So we'll wait and see here. It's going to be right here. Josh Reynolds, I believe, is going to be the caution right here. Joey Reynolds, pardon me, takes the bump to the 5 and spins the 5 around, and that's what kicked it off.
Yeah, it seems, I don't know what the intended outcome there was for the 2 trucks running in the high 20s to start bump drafted in the corner next to the race leaders. You know, typically I'd say you wanted to get ahead of the leaders in case you got a caution flag, but there was no threat of overtime. In their defense, it's kind of a twofer, right there. The 5 gets a hit and moves down. The 6 was not also, you know, flat to the bottom of the racetrack either. That 6 of Evan Williams was up off of the double yellow by maybe 3/4 of a truck length also, but just seemed like a strange decision to all of a sudden get real aggressive for the 2 of those trucks in the 20s that were not fighting for position around these race leaders.
Yeah, and you're right. The cause of it really is, and watch this. This is your race leaders. Both of them dive down and say, nope, don't want to be part of that. But you're right. The cause and effect of that is the uneven bump, right? It's something we really didn't get to talk about tonight just due to the lack of bump drafting. And I'm sure when you and I cover Top Split Daytona 500 on Friday here on RaceSpot, we'll get to talk more about it. But you have to line it up evenly, or that's what happens. So here we go. Zeros on the board. They have to make it around one more time, I would think. Or is this going to be white flag? They might have to make it around 2 more times. This is... We'll wait and see what Barney the Flagman does, Evan. This is possibly, as a team owner, this is the most nerve-wracking, fuel-saving pace lap I've sat through in a long time.
Well, look at this. See, there's plenty of challenges, and Colts at Easter Day in the white number 95 was 3rd at the start-finish line. That truck is out of fuel. He is going to coast to a stop. Now it's under power again. You can't really have the truck kind of lose the fuel pickup. Yeah, maybe he shut it off to try to conserve fuel and couldn't refire the truck, but this is going to be interesting to see if he has the fuel to come back. Will the sim give Easter Day 3rd back, because that caused a massive checkup And now for James Morgan, still under power, needs about 45 seconds more of fuel to come to the checkered flag.
This is going to be what happened, and I don't know. I think he turned it off trying to save fuel. I think he was trying to be cute with it, Evan, and had a hard time getting it turned back on. So I don't know what's going to happen here, but wow, what an exciting 5 minutes, huh? 10 minutes to the 5-minute mark. Turned out to be a heck of a race, and this is pretty cool.
It'll be one of the more unconventional Daytona finishes that you'll ever see. But lined up behind the pace truck and with maybe barely any fuel to spare, James Morgan, who is in control for late. Does he have fuel to the end? He is out.
No.
James Morgan out of fuel at pit road entry. Jacob Dunn and the rest of the field will pass him. And is it gonna be Jacob Dunn leading one lap here in Daytona and steals the checkered flag?
This is going to be a situation that we're going to figure out pretty quickly, and the race results may not reflect it, Evan, because what's going to happen is by default, iRacing will have issued black flags to everyone behind Morgan, or I guess who finished ahead of Morgan in this case. So we'll wait and see what's going to happen here. Okay, maybe not. We'll wait and see. This always gets to be a weird spot in timing and scoring, but right now, Jacob Dunn, first-time race winner in the Precision Racing League.
Yeah, sometimes you'll see the sim assigned penalties to drivers who pass others under the yellow flag. But the way it's showing now is it seems like James Morgan lost enough speed to be considered by the sim as off pace. And I thought maybe when I saw Morgan slowing just maybe, Derek, that Jacob Dunn would have stayed in line behind him and pushed him and helped those trucks get a 1-2. But instead, with no hesitation, that 3 truck went around him, took the checkered flag, and Jacob Dunn leads only 1 lap tonight, and it's behind the pace truck, and he's going to get a race win in Daytona. I already knew that it was going to be a bit of an unconventional Daytona finish off of 4, and that was even before the race leader ran out of fuel. One of the strangest and quirkiest ones you will ever see. As we take a look at your full race results, Jacob Dunn scored as the race winner ahead of a pair of Whataback racing cars. Very important and critical results for those drivers, as Bradley Hawley and Ted Lowendick came into tonight first and second in the championship, and they avoid the chaos, they avoid the drama, and they'll end up with P2 and P3 points. Patrick Cowgill's 4th, Jeff Evans in 5th, with Garrett Austin, Stephen Kirby, Matt Gagnon, Austin Hunter, and Brendan Chatley, your top 10.
Moving back into P11's Dustin Bumgarner with Mark Kalin behind him in 12th, Doug Evans, and there's James Morgan, the first car being scored a lap down in P14. That's a heartbreak right to see that for him right there. That's Colton Easterday in 15th, Stacy Hunter in 16th, Nicholas Schwartz in 17th, Colton Lane, Nicholas Hunter, and Doyle Lawrence, round out your top 20.
Continuing on through, a lot of these trucks pitted late, could not get back to the lead lap in this one, with Evan Williams, Steve Loving, Zachary Burnt, Dalton Geyer, and Kyle Dewey through the top 25 positions. Remember, Geyer started up front once upon a time earlier in this race. 26th position goes to Zach Panzarella. He was a factor late until he wasn't. Tom Massey comes home in 27th. Sam Smeltzer led 9 laps, was up front for much of the early bit of this race. He settles for a P28 ahead of Ryan Newman 29th and Edward Peltz in 30th.
Moving back to the last cars here on the grid is Zachary Williams in 31st, Thomas Sink back in 32nd, Joy Reynolds in 33rd, with Kevin McGarvey, Nathan Deering, Matthew Zerowick, Brett Adams, Andrew Sharp, and then, of course, Richard Regan Jr., the last truck in line.
Well, that's a look top to bottom at your full race results tonight from Daytona. Let's go trackside and get a word with your Daytona International Speedway winner. It was Jacob Dunn for maybe only the final 250 feet before the start-finish line. But a checkered flag in Daytona is a checkered no matter how you get it done. Jacob, congratulations.
Hey, thank you, man. That was a great race.
We were thinking out loud for much of this race that in the end ends up going green almost all the way about what the fuel strategy would be. In the end, you go 37 laps to the end of this thing. That was the longest run on fuel that anybody did all night long. Just kind of walk us through the decision on when you made the one pit stop, where so many other drivers tonight could not do it with a single stop.
Me and James, we talked about it the whole race, and the week prior and leading up to it. We knew there was going to be a time to go, and we knew there was a wreck coming at some point, but we wanted to at least have enough fuel in the tank to make it through the caution, just enough to be safe. But I hate that he ran out coming out of 4, but I even asked Marcus, can I push him? But I'm just glad one of us could make it.
How close were you in the end? Obviously, I think if James runs out there with the yellow helps the fuel number, right? You're not burning as much fuel behind the pace truck. If this thing had stayed green, obviously he, in retrospect, would not have been able to make it. How close were you on that number?
Not very far behind him. I had about, I think, 4/10 of a lap coming to the checkered. So I wouldn't have been. I barely made it. I needed Ted's help to make it around again. So, but I can't say thank you enough to James and to Derek, and everybody over at Tabula Rasa Esports for, just building a community that we can, work together as a team like this. And, I couldn't do it without them.
Well, it's a big race win. Before we let you get out of here and celebrate, Jacob, anybody you want to say hi to?
Just want to say hi to all my folks back at Tabula Rasa. Everyone watching at home, thank you guys for the great broadcast, and hopefully we can get another one next week.
We appreciate the time, Jacob. Again, congratulations on the race win.
Thank you, Evan.
It's a race winner tonight from Daytona International Speedway. Like I said, one of the quirkiest Daytona finishes you'll ever see. Jacob Dunn ends up in the win column. Second place in this one goes to Bradley Hawley on a night that really could have only done bad things. As you entered as the championship leader, Derek, he avoids all of the chaos, gets a solid P2, and is going to leave here still in control of the standings.
Yeah, we'll catch up with Bradley Hawley. Brad, what a, I guess, predictable race, right? In a way, this is sort of, you and I thought it was going to be fuel saving and everything. Just came down to that one wreck at the end. What a night, huh?
Yeah, I mean, if you can say it's what a night. I don't know if y'all saw me on my cameras, but I was yawning halfway through this race because I was bored. But yeah, the last probably 20 minutes was probably actually the most fun, just because we were trying to figure out if we're going to make it or not on fuel, and how much we were going to do, and see what we need to do to try to get a W.
So, Evan asked our winner, Jacob Dunn. I'm going to ask you, without the yellow, were you pitting again?
Oh yeah. There's no way we were going to make it. We were flirting with half a lap to a lap short, maybe a lap and a half. We definitely needed at least 1.7 gallons to get to the end, and it would have been interesting with how everything would have panned out.
Well, so now you again score more points than Ted. Richard Regan Jr. has the internet problems tonight, falls out of the race. He'll finish dead last on the grid. So this has to make you feel a bit more comfortable about the points lead, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I think Ted actually got more points than me. He led a lap and he finished 2 spots ahead of me. But championship-wise, it's going to be interesting because with Richard having his issue, it's going to come down to me and Teddy, and we got Atlanta next week. So that'll be interesting. And then we have Coda, which is going to be another headache in itself, and then Phoenix.
So a lot of people compare this track in Atlanta next week as super speedways, quote unquote. But tell me, in your mind, how do they differ? Like what will be different next week than this week?
The fact that it's a mile shorter. That's going to be the biggest thing, and the trial is going to be another tricky spot, where it kind of narrows up sometimes and widens out, which will give you a false sense of security to go 3-4 wide, and staying above the painted lines to make sure you don't get penalties on the front stretch and back stretch, honestly. But I think the biggest thing is going to be just how much tighter the corners are, how much narrower the track is, and just the actual distance of the track. So there's going to be a lot of factors, especially if there's a big wreck. There's going to be not very many places to go.
I would agree. All right, Brad. Well, I know that timing scoring is a little wacky. It says you're second. I think you're fourth on the night officially.
Yes.
A good run, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's Bradley Holly winning, or finishing P4 here, not winning. And let's go ahead and catch up with the driver who I believe is going to be scored at P2 according to the officials. That's Ted Lowendick. And Teddy, well, you were one spot from Mashui.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer, but hey, save the champagne for later, I guess.
Yeah, I got to tell you before we get into the question about the race, the bias I have about this gummy cluster, I now see that thing everywhere. It had a Super Bowl commercial. I see it in the stores. 6 months ago, I had no darn idea what a gummy cluster was. Are you the cause and effect of the gummy cluster chaos?
Yes, I will take credit for that. It all started, oh man, about a year ago. Someone new to the team, I was eating a bag of them, and we were doing a race, and they're like, "What are those?" And I was like, "It's the best candy ever. It's the comeback of the year for nerds." And I mean, all they did was take the nerds rope and cut it into little bits, and who would have thought it would be as good as it is? But the next day, the person went and bought a bag, and ever since then the team's been pushing the NGCs, as we call them. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different flavors out there, and maybe one of these days we'll get a sponsor. Who knows?
Yeah, get you some sent to the house. We'll talk about the race. You come in P2 tonight. Obviously a fuel save race. We all thought it would be. How frustrating was it? Or was it frustrating? Maybe it's a better question.
I guess it's better than a wreck fest. It's probably difficult from a commentator's perspective. Maybe not. Maybe I'm putting words in your mouth there. Because it's not exciting. I can tell you that. We'll probably hear the podcast after the Daytona 500 this weekend saying the same thing, that we're all saving fuel, waiting to not have to take as much fuel on the final pit stop. And that second run, the speed picked up a little bit from that main pack, and it kind of was it was making us sweat there. If that caution wouldn't have come out, I don't know if we would have been able to make it. But it's going to be really close. And just got lucky with the caution there. But hey, that's why you save the fuel, in case you can stay out as long as you can. It's the risk you take.
All right, well, you finished 2 spots better than Brad tonight officially. I think when race results are fixed, so you'll almost close that points gap. So I guess we'll see how these last couple races turn out.
Yeah, I was this race and next week are kind of the wild card races in the season. So it was really just hoping we could survive and use I think my worst race so far is a 6th place finish. And hopefully that, if I can drop a 6th place as my worst race of the season, I'll be happy with that season, no matter how the season finishes.
All right. Well, great run tonight, Ted. We'll see you in 1 week in Atlanta and see if you can maybe take that points lead.
Thanks, Derek. You guys have a good evening.
You as well. That's Ted Lowendick finishing P2 officially. And then Evan, I think you're going to catch up with our P3 finisher in Jeff Evans.
Yeah, we'll wait till the official results confirm everybody, but Jeff Evans going to be getting a good result out of this one no matter what. Jeff, congratulations on at least a top 5 finish, if not better. In the end, I think the count was maybe 9 trucks able to go to the end of this race on the one-stop strategy, so we'll start there. I think obviously that was the plan for everybody all along, but what did you do tonight that others couldn't?
I guess, it really came down to saving fuel that first run and when everybody else pitted, because everybody that was able to make it there at the end, they all seemed to pitted on lap, I think it was 36. So that one extra lap really seemed to kind of open us up strategy-wise.
And of course, coming to the end of this race, there's drivers splintering off, coming to pit road. There's lapped cars involved in the lead pack as well. And the added confusion or maybe actually predictability of the fact that knowing, hey, there's no overtime, that's not a factor on fuel. Just kind of walk us through those final 5 laps from behind the wheel. Did you have a move plan to get through, or did the yellow actually help you by letting you pace for the last couple of laps?
My goal was probably going to be pit that next lap coming coming around there, and when the caution came out, I knew I had enough fuel that we would be able to make it come back around to the checkered. I didn't have any sort of fuel to be able to make a move on Teddy or push to get up to Jacob there. But yeah, it was just kind of riding along and keep saving fuel, and then really shorten up that pit stop for like a gallon or whatever it was going to be that we needed. But I think coming to the coming around the line, I think I was like maybe 0.3 gallons short. So just we knew where we were at, and we just like that caution definitely saved us as far as being able to make it.
Well, what's it like in the end? There's a lot of unpredictability. Obviously, you come into a race like this, you don't know what to suspect, and you'll end up getting your best finish so far of the season. Yeah,
it was it was stressful at times, but I mean, it was just kind of riding, fuel saving, and hoping you're there at the end. And I mean, we kept it clean all the way to the end there, and that's racing to the most part. Just got to be there in the end, and I mean, we were there in the end. It just kind of everybody just slowly putting around behind a pace car at that point. So
it'll be a top 5 or 3, one or the other in the end of this one. Jeff, before we let you get out of here, the sponsors, the shout outs, who makes it happen for you?
Oh yeah, always got to shout out Miracle Flow, Phil of Miracle Flow. He's been behind us for years now. Shout out everybody over at Waterback for all the time they put into it and strategizing and everything. And then the Solpec Precision Racing guys, Solpec, Abruzzi, and Virtual Mindset.
We appreciate your time. Again, congratulations on the good result, and hopefully this can spur a little bit of momentum, and you guys can keep it up next week in Atlanta.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
It's one of your top finishers tonight in Jeff Evans gets his best result of the season thus far after his previous best was a 7th in the season opener at Michigan. And with that, a unique Daytona experience comes to an end. Derek, I know we said right off at the top, drivers predicted a lot of, I don't want to say complacency, but predictability early, fuel saving. And then in the end, even though it may not have been the most exciting thing for them, it was very difficult for us to get a read on who had fuel, who didn't have fuel. First, it seemed like they were all going to be able to go on a one-stop strategy. Then we thought they were all going to have to pit a second time. And in the end, the answer lies somewhere there within the middle. And the pass for the race win happens under the caution flag at pit road entry coming to the checkered.
Yeah, that word you used at the beginning of the broadcast, I said I wasn't a fan of the word luck. But in the end, there was a little bit of luck that helped Jacob Dunn with that fuel saving and that pass at the end and what have you. What a crazy, crazy night. So you're right, complacency, but action. As weird as those two things are to go together, it sort of happened tonight. But that was a lot of fun. And hey, if you loved that style of racing, 1 week from tonight, we could do it again.
That's right. It's going to be a slightly different challenge, but it is going to be high speeds and drafted action. When we say let's go racing at iRacing's virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway in 1 week's time. But until then, that is it for us here tonight from Daytona. On behalf of our entire team at the PRL at RaceSpotTV and for your broadcast team tonight, for Dustin Allis, myself, Evan Pasoko, and Derek Watson, I want to say thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you again in 1 week's time on Wednesday, February the 19th, from Atlanta Motor Speedway. That race and every race of the Precision Racing League Truck Series can be found right here on RaceSpotTV. Until next time, good night from Daytona, and congratulations to race winner Jacob Dunn.